Hello everyone, welcome to today's lecture. In our today's lecture, we are going to learn about email protocols. We have learned in our previous lecture, we have learned about email and how messages transferred in email. But messages transfer between a sender to receiver. So in between, which are the protocols are responsible for that? So that are called email protocols. Mainly there are 4 email protocols. First is a SMTP, second is a MIME, third is a POP, and fourth is a IMAP. So let's understand first SMTP in detail. SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. SMTP is an internet standard for sending emails on the internet. SMTP is the most popular protocol for email communication over the internet and is provided an intermediary network service between remote email providers or an organizational email server and local user accessing it. Simple Mail Transfer Protocols provides the ability to send and receive email messages, and it is an application layer protocol that enables the transmission and delivery of the emails over the internet. SMTP usually is implemented to operate over internet port number 25. So basically it is an application layer protocol. So we think that we ever wonder what happened after you composed an email to your friend and then click on the send button? How does the email end up at your friend's mailbox? So in this lecture I am going to teach you step by step the full journey of email message, starting from when you click the send button until it lands in your friend's mailbox. So to understand how email works, you need to understand an internet protocol called SMTP, or a Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. So an SMTP is an internet standard for sending emails on the internet. So we can say that if I want to transfer a mail to my friend, yes, so just when I click on the send button and my friend receives that mail, in between my messages passes on the network. Yes, so in that network, how messages transfer, who can transfer that message to the receiver? So that is done by the SMTP. Yes, so let's understand SMTP for one example. So I am going to explain an SMTP protocol and how email works by following the journey of email message from one person, for example a Bob, and another person is a Alice. Yes, so let's assume a Bob has an email account at Gmail, bob@gmail.com, and Alice has an email account at alice@yahoo.com. So this is the figure, so that how messages transfer from one person to another person. This is a Bob and this is a Alice. As I said that each has their own account. Bob has a Gmail account and Alice has a Yahoo account. Yes. So if a Bob wants to send an email to Alice, he composes his message on the application running on his PC. Suppose a Bob uses a Mac PC, so he has a mail app. He has a mail app, Apple's mail app, and he is ready to click send. What I am going to do now is I am going to track this message all the way from Bob's laptop until it reaches to Alice's laptop. So first let's lay down all the participating players in the process. So as shown in the figure, there are main four participants. First is a Bob's user agent, Alice user agents, Bob's mail server, and Alice mail server. Yes, we already learned about what is a user agent and what is a mail server in our previous lecture. So let's get started. So these are main 4 components which is required to transfer email from one person to another. So let's understand each in detail. First is a Bob's user agent. So this is an application running on Bob's laptop that he uses to compose, reply to, and read his email messages. Bob uses a Apple's mail app on his Mac as his user agent. Yes, so here the user agent of Bob is a Apple's mail app. If Bob wants to read his email messages, his user agent fetches them from Bob's mail server. That I will explain what that is next. If Bob wants to send an email message, he composes the message on his user agent and then pushes it to his mail server to be delivered to the right recipients. Second is a Bob's mail server. So Bob has an email account on Gmail. So what this means is that there is a remote machine under the gmail.com domain that manages all the emails messages sent to the Bob. So this machine is also in charge of sending email messages sent from Bob to other users on the other mail server. So this remote machine is what we call Bob's mail server. Third is a Alice mail server. So similar to Bob's mail server, but it's a Yahoo machine instead of Gmail machine because, as I mentioned earlier, Alice has a Yahoo account. And the fourth is Alice user account. So again, similar to Bob's user agent, this is the application running on Alice's laptop that allows her to fetch email from her mail server to read. It also allows user to compose message on her laptop and push them to her mail server to be later delivered to the proper recipients. Alice has a PC and she uses a Microsoft Outlook as her user agent. Yes, so now we are clear that Bob uses a user agent as a Mac's Apple app. Bob's mail server is a Gmail domain mail server. Alice uses a user agent as a Microsoft Outlook, and Alice mail server is a Yahoo mail server. Yes, so this is clear. Now back to our scenario. Let's follow email message as it's travel from Bob to Alice. Now back to our scenario. Let's follow the email messages as it travel from Bob to Alice at a high level. Yes. So let's understand what is happening between when user sends a message to another person. So a Bob open his mail app, provides Alice email address alice@yahoo.com and writes his message and click the send button. So this is the first step. With the help of Bob's user agent, Bob write the email and add the address of Alice and click on the send button. Second is the mail app starts communicating with Bob's mail server and eventually push the email that Bob composed to Bob's mail server, where it is stored to be delivered later to alice@yahoo.com. Yes. So now Bob's user agent or Bob's mail app is start communicating. So it get the message from Bob's and also address of Alice. Now the third step is Bob's mail server sees that there is a message pending delivery to alice@yahoo.com. It starts a communication with the yahoo.com mail server to allow for this message delivery to happen. It is here where the SMTP protocols comes into play. SMTP is a protocol that governs the communication between these two mail servers in our particular scenario. Bob's mail server will play the role of SMTP client, while Alice's mail server will play the role of SMTP server. Yes. So here now Bob's mail server see that there is one message pending. So that server takes a message from that app and start processing to send this mail to Alice. Now the fourth step is, after some initial SMTP handshaking between the Gmail and Yahoo mail server, the SMTP client sends Bob's message to Alice's mail server. Now the Bob's mail server will send that email to the Alice mail server. Now Alice mail server receives a message and store it in her mailbox so that she can read it later. So now the last step is, at some point Alice uses her Microsoft Outlook to fetch messages from her mailbox and eventually read the Bob's message. So this is how communication is happen, or this is how a mail is transferred from one person to another person. So this is a simple flow of how one person can send a email to another person. So here we can say that once Bob sends the mail, then after, with the help of SMTP protocol, two servers are communicating with each other. A Bob's mail server or the client mail server sends an email to the receiver's mail server, and now that receiver's mail server send that mail to the user agent so that receiver can read that message. So this is how communication is happened. So now, as I said, that all the communication between two servers is done by the SMTP protocols. So now let's understand what is the SMTP protocol and how it works. So the SMTP protocol is a text-based protocol that is composed of commands and replies. SMTP client sends an SMTP commands where the SMTP server responds to these commands with numerical codes. Some example of these commands are hello, mail, from, receipt to, data, and quit. So these are some example of commands. Now let's understand each command in detail. So the first command is hello. So it initiates a mail transaction identifying the sender to the recipients. Second is the mail from. It tells the remote SMTP that a new mail transaction is beginning. Third is the receipt to. So this means that the sending SMTP sends a receipt command for each intended receiver. Fourth is the data. If accepted, the sender transfer the actual message. End of message is indicated by a full stop of a line by itself. And the fifth command is a terminate the connection. So by using this command, by using this SMTP commands, two mail servers can communicate with each other. So for now, let's focus on the communication that happened between Bob's mail server and Alice mail server. So a Bob mail server is running on gmail.com machine and an Alice mail server is running on yahoo.com machine. So remember that Bob's mail server had to start a communication channel with Alice mail server to deliver a Bob's email to Alice. So there are essentially three phases in SMTP protocol. First is a SMTP handshake, second is the message transfer, and third is closing the connection. So let's understand first with example. The first is a SMTP handshake. The first SMTP client established a TCP connection with the SMTP server, to which the SMTP server responded with code 220. After the SMTP client receives the 220 reply, the handshaking starts. The general purpose of handshaking stage is for the client and the server to identify themselves, the service they can provide, and to identify the identities of sender and recipients of the email. Yes, so this is the first step of SMTP. First step SMTP is handshake. Suppose we are meeting to one new person, then the first thing we'll do is handshake. Yes, by handshaking we can start our communication. By handshaking we can identify with each other. Yes, so this is so similarly in SMTP communication, first the handshake between a client's mail server and the server's mail server is done. Yes. So when a first SMTP client established a connection to the server, at that time the server responded with some code. So that code are the codes are the replies. By using that code, client understand that connection is established or not. So in the first step, let's understand with one Bob's and Alice example. So it starts by Bob's mail server sending an hello command to Alice's mail server and identifying its domain. For example, Bob's mail server would send a hello at gmail.com. Think as a hello command as a hello message that the SMTP client sends to the SMTP server. As a matter of fact, it was actually called a hello command. So it starts by a Bob's mail server sending an hello command to Alice's mail server and identifying its domain. For example, Bob's mail server would send hello gmail.com. So by sending this mail, Alice mail server find out that yes, this is a mail from gmail.com mail server. So let's understand this with one sequence diagram. Suppose this is a Bob's mail server and this is a Alice mail server. So the first step is Bob's mail server sends an hello message to the Alice mail server. Yes. So here Bob is sending an hello message to the Alice mail server and Alice mail server responded with some code. So here now the SMTP server at Yahoo acknowledged the hello message by responding with some code like 250 along with the service that the SMTP server can support. It is important for a client and server to agree on the services and features they can support before the message transfer starts. Yes. So before we deal with anything, first we agree on the terms. So that is the done at the first stage or at the handshake time. Now that the greeting is done, it's time for the client to send the information of the sender and recipients of the email. So the SMTP client resume by sending a mail from command along with the sender's information. In our scenario, it would be something like mail from bob@gmail.com. So when SMTP server receives this command, it responds with same code 250 to indicate that it has no problem accepting messages from the Bob. Yes. So now after handshaking, now the Bob's mail server sends information to the Alice mail server that this mail is from bob@gmail.com. So now Alice mail server responded with this same code 250 and say that I have no problem with Bob. Yes. So afterwards the client sends the receipt to command along with the email address of receipt to alice@yahoo.com. Now Bob's mail server sends a receipt to with alice@yahoo.com. It indicates that this message has to be delivered to alice@yahoo.com. This message is the receiver of this message is alice@yahoo.com. Among other things, the SMTP server checks if the user Alice exists, and if yes, it sends back a 250 acknowledgement indicate that it is okay with accepting message from Bob to deliver to Alice. Now Alice mail server find out that is there any alice@yahoomail.com user is exist or not. If exist, then it again reply with the same code and say that it is okay for accepting message from Bob for Alice. So this concludes the handshaking stage. Yes. So this is all the handshaking stage. Yes. Now the second stage is a message transfer. So let's understand what is a message transfer. Before starting the actual message transfer, the SMTP client sends one or more command called data to the server just to make sure that the server side is ready. After receiving this code from server, the client is now ready to send the email messages. The actual email message is sent out line by line. The server side through does not acknowledge each individual line received. It just wait for the end of the mail, special line, which is a line that is only has a full stop by itself. So when the client sends a full stop to the server, this indicates that client is done with the sending the email message. This also tells the server that it can start processing message now. So this all message transfer process is done in the message transfer stage. So let's move on to that figure. So now a Bob's mail server sends some data to the Alice mail server for testing. Yes. So here with the data command, Alice mail server receives that data. So Alice mail server responds with the code 354 indicating that it is ready to receive the message. Now after receiving this code from server, the client or Bob's mail server is now ready to send the email message. Believe it or not, but the actual email message is sent out line by line. The server side through does not acknowledge each and individual line received, so it just waits for the full stop. So now Bob is sending a whole message to the Alice mail server, and Alice mail server wait for the full stop. After whole message is sent to the Alice mail server, when the Bob's mail server sends a full stop to the server, this indicates that the client is done with the sending the email message. This is also tells the server that it can start the processing the message now. So after that Alice mail server receives the full stop, it acknowledges the receiving the whole message by sending a 250 code back to the client. Yes. So after it receives the full stop, now Alice mail server sends a code to the Bob's mail server and say that I have received complete message, and that's it. This is how email message that Bob's composed on his laptop ends up on a Yahoo machine waiting for Alice to fetch and read. But there is still one thing missing: closing the connection between the SMTP client and SMTP server. Yes, so the third stage or the third phase is a closing the connection. So this is a very simple and straightforward. Client mail server sends a quit command to the server's mail server to indicate its intention to close the connection, to which server's mail server responds with 221 code. So let's understand it with figure. So in here now, after accepting the acknowledgement that Alice mail server successfully received all message, then Bob's mail server or the client mail server sends for closing the connection. So it sends a quit command to the Alice mail server, and after that this request is received by the Alice mail server, and Alice mail server accepted that request and sends acknowledgement, or in acknowledgement it sends one new code for closing the connection. And now this is how a connection is closed. So these are the main three steps that is followed by the SMTP protocols. Yes, so first is a handshake, second is a message transfer, and third is a closing the connection. In the handshake, first it sends a hello message. Now after receiving acknowledgement, client server sends identity of client mail server sends an identity of person, and after that client mail server sends after that client mail server sends that this message is for alice@yahoo.com. So client mail server sends a destination address, and after that server mail server check that this destination address is exist or not, and if exists it sends a acknowledgement. So this is whole a handshake process. Then after, client mail server start sending the data with the data command. So after receiving this, a server mail server sends acknowledgement, and that after getting that acknowledgement, client mail server starts sending the whole email message. Alice mail server wait for the full stop, and when full stop is received, it acknowledges that I am successfully getting the whole message. So after this acknowledgement, now client initiates the closing the connection with the quit command, and in return a mail server sends the acknowledgement for that. So this is the communication happen in the SMTP protocol. So these are the main three stages of SMTP protocol. So let's revise each thing. So SMTP is an email protocol for transferring email from one mail server to another mail server. SMTP protocol is must required. How it works? There is one user agent who sends an email. That email goes on the SMTP client mail server. Now client mail server and receiver mail server start communicating with the SMTP protocols, and after the communication, that whole message is transferred to the server's mail server, and from that mail server a receiver fetches the email. So this is how the process is, or the communication is done. It has mainly a 4 agent, which is a Bob's user agent, Bob's mail server, Alice mail server, and Alice user agent. Yes, this is a sequence diagram that how SMTP communication is happened between the server, client mail server, and receiver mail server. These are the command that is used for communication with SMTP protocols, and it is mainly a 3-phase SMTP handshake, message transfer, and closing the connection. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.